MOBE Monday. I am Yvette Moyo, and I am the co-founder of Real Men Cook and MOBE. And I say Real Men Cook because Real Men Charities is a presenting nonprofit of this series of MOBE Mondays, which is usually a symposium series. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the history for those of you who are not familiar with MOBE, Marketing Opportunities in Business and Entertainment. Just started in 1992, and we presented our conferences twice a year. We felt that we needed to be an accelerator for business success, Black business success, and for success of corporate executives who were looking to make a difference and actually weren't using the word equity, affirmative action at that time. Was just that, some positive action towards our businesses and towards our communities so that we might grow. And we did have a period. We had a very good period, a very good run of opportunities and people, corporate executives. I was just talking about to one of our panelists of companies like McDonald's and Coca-Cola that had some of the most forward-thinking executives that you can imagine that didn't have to give a donation. They absolutely saw value in product and productivity, creativity, and they actually invested as business people in these things that some of the legacy brands that I saw grow from nothing before BET. I was in the business as a marketer. So marketing opportunities in business and entertainment, particularly for today, which is, of course, the day that we celebrate the birth of Dr. King. And we celebrate that at our company by working really hard because he didn't take a break. He didn't take a vacation. So I hope that while you might have had a holiday from your regular work, I hope you did the work, even if it was with your children, to tell the story, to maintain our legacy, and to just be engaged in something that's productive. And if you haven't done that already today, welcome to MOBE Mondays, because this is going to be absolutely productive. I do want to say something about the entertainment side of the business, because today, as we talk about philanthropy and Blacks giving back, I just have to do a shout out to Stevie Wonder, an entertainer who spent years with a vision that this day could be possible, that we could have a holiday in honor of Dr. King. And he used his expertise, his talent, his brand power to make this happen and to cause a movement to make this day possible. So let's not take it for granted. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce you to the gentleman that is going to lead this discussion today, this very important discussion. He is a part of what we call the MOBE family. That means that we are committed to each other, to leave our egos at the door and to make sure that we are contributing something for the benefit of other people during discussions such as this. So I will tell you a little bit about this gentleman, Mr. Ken Rye. It's a part of our MOBE executive committee, and he's a 20-year veteran and in strategic digital marketing for corporate business, corporate America, small business clients across retail, manufacturing, the entertainment and hospitality sectors. His core skills are in lead generation, technical planning, and consumer engagement that have translated across brands and brands, including some of our favorite brands, the Home Depot, Public Supermarket, Verizon, Michelin, and many others. His consultancy, the Ken Rye Marketing Group, continues to help clients pivot and drive revenue through crisis management, industry distribution, and digital information programs. His experience in media planning, and I first met him at Burrell Advertising. He was a superstar then and continues to inspire me in every way, asking those difficult questions. He loves media, he loves the numbers, he loves measurement, all the things that I love, and I have no idea how to do it. Ken Rye is that person. He's had that experience in media planning and co-hosting Home Improvement on Steve Harvey. You might have heard of that back in the day. Big successful program. The morning show with Tom Joyner, that the Fantastic Voyage activations. That's what one of the things Ken did, the Soul Beach Music Festival. He has recently been on a MOBE panel talking about venue entertainment, what's happening in entertainment with some major brands that we know. His entertainment marketing clients perform in the top live music venues in Atlanta, Chicago, Philadelphia, DC, and the Bay Area. With live performances, and he books clients including jazz and funk. My favorite, Roy Ayers, which has always kept us very much connected. And I could just go on, but I will just tell you that Mr. Ken Rye, beyond the resume, he is a gentleman. He is a passionate advocate for everything that we are as a people, and he's a committed father, and so much more. To Mr. Ken Rye, thank you for serving on our executive committee for MOBE, and I'm going to turn this important panel, Blacks Give Back, over to your capable hands.
Oh, Ms. Moya, thank you. What an introduction. That is just like pressure. I started sweating back here. My goodness. Let's bring up
I'll be one of the audience members, and you'll see me chatting with our guests, and I'm going to sign off now. Thank you, Steve Casey, for being here. Thank you, Adrian Johnson, and thank you, Christal Jackson, for being here tonight. I'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvette. And we'll go ahead and pull up the power presentation. First of all of you, thank you for participating tonight. We try to be very, very strategic about the types of topics that we line up, and we'll bring up a PowerPoint presentation and share that on the screen. But it was no accident that we're talking about philanthropy on the observance of Dr. King's birthday. No greater example. And particularly in his case, it's nearly impossible to quantify everything that he has done, the contributions that he's made, the lasting living legacy that we all continue to benefit from now. Even going through some of the archive photos, it's amazing that some of the scenes we see back then have almost recently been emulated within very recent weeks. So we've still got a lot of work to do, but this is a very encouraging topic. If we can bring up the presentation, if not, we'll just go without it. But one of the things that Dr. King had penned and actually authored was a quote very specifically about philanthropy. Dr. King said that philanthropy is commendable, but it must not cause the philanthropist to overlook the circumstances of economic justice, which is the reason why philanthropy is necessary in the first place. And that's probably something that we'll get into slightly as a part of this conversation, is how do we quantify, how do we make sure that there's accountability? Is it true altruism? What is the driving force, and are we actually backing that up? What is a philanthropist? If you go textbook definition, and I generally hate doing this, but I have to do it anyway, because really it kind of gets us grounded. And a philanthropist really is just a person who has that desire to promote the welfare of others, expressed specifically through generous donations of money and good deeds and courses, right? So a philanthropist is really a person who donates time, money, experience, skills, and talent to help genuinely create a better world. Anyone can be a philanthropist regardless of their status or net worth. And that's very important to remember, regardless of status or net worth, particularly as we talk about the African-American community, and we'll get into that. Philanthropy is a long-term strategy, right? It's strategic, and it often involves matching multiple gifts to help people over a number of years. So this is definitely not a hit it or quit it type of scenario. This is sustained activity. Back in 2018, there was almost $430 billion in charitable giving that really came from individuals, foundations, bequests, corporations, with the biggest percent of that coming from actual individuals. Surprisingly, individuals represent 68% of the total giving, while foundations are more like 18%, or closer to 75.86 billion. That total amount of $430 billion really represents almost 2% of the gross domestic product of this country. Quick overview in terms of African Americans as a whole. It is quantified that we are more generous givers, and we'll be able to talk a little bit about that. 63% of African American households donate almost $11 billion annually. So a little nugget there that, again, much more generous contributors than often is shared. Black households also give away approximately 25% more than Caucasian households. Through the research and anecdotally, churches, community organizations, and higher education are principally some of the bigger programs. So really, it's about 6% of median wealth of African Americans is given to charity, compared to 2% on the national average. Donations of money, volunteerism, goods, and services are all a part of that mix. One of the things that we also recognize about philanthropy is that there are some generational differences, so that African Americans are not completely homogenous. Boomers and Gen X are really much bigger givers in terms of actual dollars, giving around $732 to over $1,200 a month, while millennials are going to represent more of the workforce, but right now their disposable income is garnering an average about $481 per year as millennials. Faith-based is always a big faction. With or without the research, you know that 71% basically of African Americans versus 53% of the general market are known to contribute to faith-based, and tithing be a really big part of that. High satisfaction with African Americans, particularly with everything that's gone on in the pandemic: health, climate, housing, race, criminal justice, tax implications. There are all so many different changes for what's going on in 2020. And yet, philanthropy somehow is still growing. The other piece of this is corporate responsibility, because by 2050, the country stands to actually be much more profitable by closing the racial equality gap here in this country. And so quite a few of the various initiatives that we'll be talking about today all help to address racial equity. So now I'd like to really introduce our esteemed panelists who really are approaching this from so many different ways. And it really is going to be kind of exciting to kind of dig in and delve and really kind of find out how they have been active contributors. Our first guest is Christal Jackson. She's a native of Houston, Texas. She's had a very fulfilling career of serving in the social impact sector, as well as the diversity and inclusion sector. Ms. Jackson founded Head and Heart Philanthropy, or HHP, as well as Mosaic Genius, or MG. And these are both social impact agencies that are really focused on improving social, economic, and educational outcomes for communities of color. Recently, she was recognized by Essence magazine for her ability to convene and curate the best and brightest in this sector. She's also been recognized by Forbes magazine, Ebony magazine. She's moderated Black tech panels with Earl Graves as a part of the Black Enterprise magazine online conferences. She's a published author, writing a book called Women of Color Pray, Voices of Strength, Faith, Healing, Hope, and Courage. Plus, she serves on numerous boards. So she's on the Harlem Tech Fund, the Motown Musical National Leadership Council, Generation USA, which we're going to get a chance to talk about a little bit, and then also the Africa American Institute, and advisor to New Community Transformation Fund. Ladies and gentlemen, please, can we get a nice golf clap for Miss Christal Jackson? Welcome. Is that the golf clap? Christal, thanks for being with us. Our next panelist is Adrian Johnson. She is a real veteran in the industry. Her job has literally been inspiring world leaders to make their mark internationally within their own respective communities. She's got over 30 years of expertise. She started very, very young. But it's clear that her talents in leadership development and business acumen just make her highly effective in a very challenging environment. She's a pragmatic strategist. She's an innovative problem solver, and she is a keen executive coach. She created Infinity Global Connections after being with Coca-Cola for 23 years within their executive ranks. She has created some incredible initiatives that are still long-standing, including a promotion of 21 historically Black colleges and universities. She has encouraged students to attend the World Cup in South Africa, and she continues to do a series of programs for women throughout the world, but also in Africa. She's provided hard goods, sewing machines, fabric. She's helped to encourage young entrepreneurs. She has done work in Ghana and continues to forge different types of trips. And then domestically, she is a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, as well as one of the founder and chapter leads of Jack and Jill, as well as links, a board member of the Ghanaian Women's Association of Georgia, and is a world traveler frequently going to Ghana, Rwanda, South Africa, France, and England. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Adrian Johnson. Thank you for participating.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And then our last panelist is a Milwaukee guy who now lives in Chicago. Steve's reputation precedes him as a professional community development person. I mean, he really knows how to bring people together. His active role is as the Associate Director in Grants Management for the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation based out of Chicago. Now, for those of you who might not be familiar with the MacArthur Foundation, it's a private foundation that makes grants and impact investments to support nonprofit organizations in approximately 50 countries across the world. There's an endowment of over $7 billion, and it provides approximately $260 million annually in grants and impact investments. Steve is that guy to make sure that they really are impactful investments. He's responsible for the day-to-day operations of grants management team. He advises the staff on grants management, the structures of grants. He's also very, very important, the overseer of regulatory compliance. And we're going to get a chance to delve into some of that as a part of our conversations today. His real goal is to make sure that each of the funders are actually meeting the objectives of the foundation. Steve got his education, his BA from the University of DC, got his MBA from Marquette University in his hometown of Milwaukee, and really has developed a series of amazing programs, not only with the MacArthur Foundation, but also with his lovely wife, Kimberly Casey. They are raising their two sons and doing something really interesting by participating in the development of the Inglewood community in the city of Chicago. He's also very active with National Urban League chapters and Neighborhood Services of Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Steve Casey. Now, first question, guys, just kind of getting into it. I'm sorry to be so long-winded on the introductions, but you all have such amazing portfolios. The year 2020 was just a remarkable year for everyone. And really just to kind of set the stage, let's go around the horn and really just give me a sense of how your work has changed. Christal, let's start with you, because frequently you're training other people, right? Not to put you immediately on the spot, but you're training other people as a consultant to get into this industry, and it's far more challenging now. So how have things changed, and what are some of the big points that you're making in terms of how to be successful in giving during this day and age?
Thank you for having me. 2020 sort of allowed us to test some of these theories we've been talking about, right? We've been pontificating about what it means to create equity in communities, what it means to bridge the wealth gap. And fortunately, because of a partnership I had with JP Morgan Chase, I was able to help entrepreneurs take their work and make certain it was tech enabled. And prior to COVID, you know, when I started trying to have these conversations with people about the importance of having a business that had a tech sustainability model to it, they would look and say, eh. But after living in the Bay Area, I saw how tech is in everything, how tech is moving so rapidly and it changes all the time. And so I said to JP Morgan at one of the convenings I host on the Vineyard, I said, I really think we need to start to talk to small businesses, nonprofits, the Black community about creating tech enabled businesses. And sure enough, when COVID hit, people started knocking my door down. Oh my God, that program you were talking about. Because the businesses that basically stayed open had a tech footprint, right? Or they had some tech capability. And so, you know, not to stay on this bandwagon around the importance of tech inclusion and bridging the digital divide, but I have really spent a lot of time in 2020 talking about the importance of that and pointing to real examples of why it's so important.
Yeah. You know, Adrian, same question, right? Because in your case, you're looking at this from a global perspective. And how are your folks coping? Because they're literally at all reaches of the globe. How is your business changed? How has the industry changed? And how have you been able to sustain?
Well, several things. And thank you very much for having me here, Ken. So first of all, for my business coaching, I've been able to successfully work with my clients and help them learn this word pivot, so that they now know that there are other things that they can do and what they need to do and how to accomplish their goals. And so and it's okay to change, and it's okay to not go in the direction that you thought you were going to go, but you have to go a different way. I also had the same position with going global, my programs, initiatives in Africa. I had to really learn to lean on my on-the-ground team. So it's very important when you have a global nonprofit, you have to have people on the ground. You have to do things like respect the laws, make sure you respect the culture. They had COVID there. And so my program, Woyibra, is about teaching women how to become seamstresses, to make reusable sanitary pads, and to make them and sell them. And so what we did was we pivoted. And we started teaching our women, we have about 140 of them now, how to make facial masks. Wow. So how to make the mask and how to sell them in their rural villages in Africa. So it's all about pivoting.
Yeah. And Steve, talk about the Chicago pivot. I mean, Chicago was in the epicenter of just so much that was going on. So not only you having the magnitude of a foundation that obviously supports more of the globe, but you were right there in it. You know, you've got published initiatives. The MacArthur Foundation was actively involved in several COVID initiatives. And then on the flip side, just in your work, you're actively involved in economic and community development within the city of Chicago. So like, what has this been like for you with everything that's going on? We got you still on mute, Steve.
MacArthur Foundation did something really interesting this year. We went to the private markets and got bond money, and we're able to re-give away an addition. We went to the bond markets and got 120 million. We probably moved about 40 million last year. We'll work to move the remaining over this coming year. And that's over and above any of our normal grant making. So just think about that kind of impact. And so in some cases here in Chicago, and Christal, you'll like this from the other side, we made a grant in 4 days for $1 million to support COVID, because in most cases you got to move money, and that's what we do. So in some cases we're still moving money, both not just here in Chicago, but also around the country, but also domestically, across the world, because we've got offices in India and one in Nigeria as well, and we just closed an office in Mexico. So we've got a global perspective, but we're also here hometown. We've done a lot of things to support small businesses, but also support other infrastructure like arts, or other infrastructures sort of like artist supports. And so you mentioned kind of our lending. And so in some cases where the artists We've also got funds where we guarantee so that their loans don't necessarily go underbelly, because in this case, we pay their interest over this course of COVID. So there's a lot we are doing behind the scenes. Some things are public, but some things are not. We've also did some things related to the election. We've also moved our kind of BIPOC-led, or in this case, Black and Brown community-led giving as well. We've also expanded, which MacArthur's never done, to fund Indigenous people. And so that's a whole different set of issues that MacArthur is taking on last year, and you'll see more of it as you go on. As I look here in Chicago, I live in Inglewood, right next to the epicenter of Auburn Gresham, where large Black and Brown communities are affected. It's everywhere. And I think to see everything that's going on in 2020, and then finding, in this case, the larger communities to contribute to the rebuilding, because that's also going on as well. So there's a number of pieces I think both I've seen, but also kind of implored others to kind of get on the ground and do other things to make sure that it turns the corner at the lower levels, but also at the higher levels as well.
And Steve, just in terms of broad impact, there are a lot of, it's hard enough to keep up with tax law associated with giving with nothing going on. And how challenging has it been for you to kind of coach people getting through it within COVID?
Well, I think, Adrian, you said it well, pivot. I think in some cases, and this is something we've seen on the infrastructure side, for all those organizations that had planned face-to-face meetings and convenings and all that, they've had to do budget revisions and figure out how to pivot and figure out how to do that in an electronic medium, however that is. And so that's, in some cases, extended the lives of those grants, because all things were, when you've got to go into a hole and figure that out, there's a lot there to figure out to go move your grant and still have your deliverables for the outcomes, whatever that might have been. So in some cases, Christal, like you mentioned, having a tech, at least mindset, I think helps some to pivot through this, where other organizations may not. But I also can say, and I think this is something fundamental important, we also fundamentally support violence mitigation here in Chicago. And those folks aren't tech enabled. And so in a broader way, it's both pivoting, but they've found ways to pivot, because in some cases, they've got to be on the ground a little bit more differently than they were before, because in most cases, the issues are greater as a result of this COVID moment we're in. So I think there's a lot that we've had to all change, and it's both on the ground, but also, I'll say us foundations, and I'm going to use us in the royal us, because in some cases I work there, but I think all foundations have found a way to strip away a lot of their rules, regulations, processes, and others, because in most cases, the need is greater than the processes.
Right. You know, looking at the three of you, we've probably got about 70, 80 years worth of experience, a lot of depth here. You know, Christal, before travel was somewhat limited, you were getting national recognition for, you know, getting people together at Martha's Vineyard. You know, tell us about, first of all, what that was, and then now what that's going to be.
So this is our 10th year anniversary celebration. And I have to tell you, when I started doing the gathering, I never intended for it to be a thing. I had worked in wealthy non-Black communities for a long time and saw the way they move money. And I saw the way they managed their philanthropy. I saw the way it impacted their policy. And I, for about 2 years, kept trying to go to conferences that I thought were similar to what I had been witnessing. And I didn't see it. And so it doesn't exist in our community, is what I found out. And so I decided to just gather 30 people together, cross-sector, talent, education, finance, that all cared deeply about impact. So it's a little broader than maybe just nonprofit, but they cared about impact. And so a lot of the times I would use language like venture philanthropy, philanthropy as a tool for venture. I'd use language a lot around impact investing, very little around charity. And I brought them all together and I said, okay, I thought you all should know one another. I think collaboratively, because I do think Black people have to be collaborative. We don't have the resources other communities have. I get some pushback when I say that, but it's true. But together we can be very impactful. And so I said, in order for us to move the needle on some of these very stubborn issues, we're going to have to work across sector. We can't be in our silos. And we're going to have to think about philanthropy as a venture tool. And they said, oh my God, yeah, let's do it. And so they said, well, next year. And I said, whoa, next year? Like, wait a minute, I'm not thinking about it next year. And so, every year they, I guess, sucker me back into doing this. But I say that, with love. And what I realized is I've had the gift to create a space for our folks that lead and that care deeply about our community, because I do think you can do both at the same time. COVID has made us realize we have to walk and chew gum at the same time because of our community. It's not enough just to have a bunch of money, because you'll just have a bunch of money by yourself. But, people in our communities have real needs. So that's that part. So what we did this year was, everyone was so discouraged, just, the COVID, between the deaths and the grief and the challenges. I said, we're going to go virtual. And listen, the server couldn't even handle it. And because, we thought we'll go virtual and we'll make it larger. And we did. And it was just like, oh. But that said to me that we had built something that people really value. And that they really appreciate. And so we focused this year a lot on recovery, but also what does an inclusive economy look like, right?
Now, Christal, and how do you pre-qualify your people? Because see, somehow you get the creme de la creme. You know what I mean? Like, you're not just wasting your time on everybody.
I'm not.
Like, you're getting the creme de la creme. So
they are the creme de la creme. That's true. So, listen, I watch people. For about a year, everyone that comes, I've watched or had some interaction with, right? And so I'm very clear that the people that come, they are collaborative thinkers. That's the first thing I observed. The second is, what have you done? Like, because a lot of people have great ideas, and that's wonderful. But have these people been able to take these ideas and turn them into something tangible with a real ROI? And so, I pay attention to that. One of you, and then, three, like, are you working? Or are you just always trying to have the shine, right? Because there are a lot of people, you see them all the time. So these are people you probably will never see, right? Probably hard to even get a meeting with, but I literally watch people. And the hardest part about the event is the selecting who I should extend an invitation to. Because, and when people get there, they go, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, because the time and energy goes into the curation. So we have 4 principles that we focus on. So I look for the best and brightest in those areas. And then another thing I look at a lot is I look for a lot of individuals that are often the only one, but don't want to be the only one. Because some people want to be the only one. So I look for those that are in spaces where they want to bring others along, right? Because what that tells me is they are very committed to equity and inclusion, which is, part of the impact piece. And so, that's how we get there. And then a part of it is now, if you have a friend that attends and you've never been invited, you may need to talk to your friend. Because some people come and really advocate this person should be here. Like this person absolutely has to be here. And so I'll say, okay. We'll invite them into the circle. But, it's really about creating a room where people are doing the work. Because oftentimes when you're doing the work, it's hard. It's lonely, right? And it requires a certain sophistication, because I do think as much as philanthropy is an art, there's a science to it, right? And so it's all those things. And what I love about the room, and I speak once and then I hide the entire evening. And it's because the other thing I think is important is, I'll say this publicly, the people that speak are Black. So when you come, all the experts look like you. And you don't see that at most conferences. You go to these other conferences, there's one panel for anything that's not white and male.
Mm.
That means it's going to be minorities and women. This is just one panel, but every conversation is led by a person that looks like you, right?
That's good. That's good. Hold that for 1 second. Hold that for 1 second, because we got to talk about the things you do with little girls. Like, you got to, churches. We got to go through all of that. We got Adrian over there. And as soon as you said the word sophistication, I was like, okay, here we go. We need to make this segue. Adrian.
Yes. Yes, kid.
This is very much a relationship business. And while I'm teasing you about being sophisticated, you navigated the corporate walls of this and then took this to your own business. Just tell us a little bit, first of all, about the grind of what it took to work in this space, the relationships on the corporate side, and then how that kind of translates to the work you're doing now.
So on the corporate side, it was very, very important to learn everything that Coca-Cola had to offer. I went to every class they offered, went to seminars, training. And so all the information I learned over the 25 years, because it really was 23, but I still do consulting for them now, is all about the relationships that you build. And not just the relationships inside the building, but it's relationships outside the building as well with the customers that we had. And so that was crucial too. In fact, I beat everybody in the United States on marketing excellence for 3 years in a row.
All right.
All about relationships. And so that's why I was able to transfer those transferable skills from learning about SWOT analysis. Everything I learned, I share with my clients. So I help my clients go to the next level in business coaching. And I also do the same thing in Africa with the women that I have, that I put in business, because I think it's a shame to put a woman in business and she doesn't have the business skills. So that's why I go 3 or 4 times a year and I teach them. But the blessing is, and that's why I wanted to be on this show, because Blacks do give back. And so most of the people that have funded my nonprofit are, for example, the Zeta Phi Beta sorority. And I'm an Alpha Kappa Alpha, but my AKAs, my Phi Pi Omega chapter, they give back. The Zetas give to our organization. The Magnolia Links chapter, it's Lake Spivey, Jack and Jill. I could go on and on about Black professionals who give back, who find out what you're doing, want to be a part of it, and they want to help. And so this is true, that Black people do give back. So I'm glad you came with the statistics in the beginning, because that's crucial. And so with our women, what I try to do is teach them business skills, because a lot of them had not had the opportunity to go to school and get the education. And so I teach them about things I learned at Coca-Cola, like BOGOs, buy one, get one free. And I teach them how to sell. Like, if you're selling a dress here, or you're making something, give something away, or sell it so that you can make a great sale. And I offer incentives. So when I go back, I have business reviews. So I have the ladies come in. And what was kind of hurt me one time was I have lunch and dinner for them during the training. And I noticed that during the lunch, a lot of them weren't eating. And I said, wait a minute, this is in America, we call this a lunch and learn. And so Ellen, my partner, said, she said, Reverend Johnson, the reason why they're not eating is because they're taking this food home for their children. And I was like, oh my God, here I am thinking American. So that's another thing you have to do, not think American, but think where in the country that you're in. And so it's been a blessing. I've done this in Liberia, West Africa. I'm in Ghana, West Africa now, and I'm also in Sierra Leone. And that was the point you made also, is that it's over a period of time. So I've been going to Africa now since 2001. And so this is almost my 20th year that I've been doing programs in Africa for women entrepreneurs, creating women entrepreneurs on the continent.
We've got a couple of questions coming in on Facebook, and I'm going to bring those up. But Adrian, I'm just amazed. Like, how are you navigating through travel, passports, local laws, rules, regulations? Like, how are you navigating through that stuff?
I'm telling you, it's about relationships. And even when you mentioned about I created that promotion in 2010, I took 21 HBCU students to the World Cup in South Africa. I think a global experience is crucial. We've got to teach our young adults about being global citizens, what it takes, how to navigate through. You know, I know whenever I go into rural villages, you know, and I've spent nights in villages, you have to have a translator. You can't assume that you know the language. And I also have my own transportation, you know, so there's certain things. Now, I need my own bathroom facilities and all that. So there's some things you have to not compromise on, but others you do. And so, and when you look at the end result is you're helping mankind or womankind, that's the most important thing. So we're giving back, because to whom much is given, much is required.
All right. You know, we've got a question coming in on Facebook, and folks who are watching, feel free to submit your questions as well. You know, let's assume that we've got just a wide range of folks who are participating and viewing this evening. One of the questions that's coming in is, what are some of the best practices or even financial institutions that you can recommend for Black folks that are looking to set up a family foundation? Who wants to take that one first? Christal? Steve, you want to take that one first?
Yeah, so I think it's actually more simple than folks actually realize. A lot of your community-based foundations, which is probably one in almost every major city around the country, has what they call donor-advised funds. It's actually the smartest, easiest way to start up your own foundation without having to have a lot of back office infrastructure. So 5, 6 people that can get together, pool their money together, make a deposit, make a relationship with the community foundation. They then house your money, and then you are able to then work on your process to either solicit organizations to fund and so forth. And that's actually a very easy way. I think it's probably the smartest, easiest way to enter in. And there's all kinds of donor advised funds, which is probably the secret here, in the fact that you may know all the foundations, but there's a whole lot of donor advised funds that exist all around the country. And there's a whole lot more money in some cases in the donor advised funds with a whole lot less rules and a whole lot less requirements. But it starts with relationships. And so in a broader way, that's one way to get there. But in those cases, I would say starting a foundation on your own, look at your own neighborhood community foundation in your city. So here in Chicago, Chicago Community Trust has those. You can set it up, and then you can have a donor advised fund through the Chicago Community Foundation, because that's the other side of the house. So you know one publicly, and the other one you may not know, because it's the other space that actually holds a donor advised fund.
That man, wonderful. You know, people are going to keep replaying that one. That's the beauty of social media. You know, they'll be able to keep replaying that one.
Especially with Christal saying yes.
Adrienne, what's your take?
Yeah.
So there are a couple of things that I wanted to say. So having been now I'm on the other side, but when I was at Coca-Cola, when controlling budgets, there are a couple of things I want people to know. First of all, do your homework. You have to read our annual report, look and see what the goals are, what we funded last year. Have we ever funded anything? What are the funding amounts? You know, when are the proposals due? What is our deadline dates? The next thing is, don't harass the funder. You know, you call 5 or 6 times, we got it. Okay, we got it. You don't want to harass them or their staff. You want to also say thank you. And in saying thank you, send photos of the event or whatever, because we may not have been there. And then send remarks thanking the sponsor with some of the key people there. Mention the company and the media. Be able to work with their communications team to make sure that you work in conjunction with their team, because, you know, we won't let anything go out unless we've seen it. So give the information so they can amplify the commitment to your work. And finally, follow the rules. You know, you might remember that don't do a bait and switch, or if you're going to have Pepsi there, let me know. Frito-Lay's is there. So when I walk into the room, I don't want to see a Coke banner and a Frito-Lay there too. Tell me ahead of time. So make sure that you're following the rules. You telling me what we're doing, because I might inspect what I expect. And so if I show up, and then remember, the last thing is finally, no today doesn't mean no every day or every year. If I say no this year, that doesn't mean it. So don't get mad at me and you don't want to holler at me or any of that. You still may have another shot at it next year. So I think those are great things they have to do.
Great tips, great tips. And then you mentioned follow the rules. You know, Steve, I can imagine some of the people on your team are the enforcers of the rules. Talk about that, you know, because that bait and switch thing that Adrienne mentioned is a big deal. How do you make sure that people stay the course and deliver?
So I think there's a lot I want to maybe demystify here. And I think there's, as a public charity, in most cases a 501c3 issued by the IRS, we actually can make a one-way gift to you. We have our internal requirements that we put on that gift. And in some cases, as Adrian mentioned, follow the rules. A lot of that is simple. You gave us a proposal and a budget, follow that proposal or budget. If you need to deviate and change, call me. We'll talk about it. But just don't make the change on your own and then tell me about it later. Because we, as you said, Ken, we are kind of that compliancy, policing grants management. It's not what we prefer to do because we prefer the money to keep moving. But we also can pull that money back because we have clauses in that contract. So follow the rules. So in some cases, we are both your friend, foe, and also your brother and or sister. But in some cases, I will do what we got to do if you're not following the rules. So a lot of that is just simple human relationships. And in this case, you needed to deviate from the budget, call your funder. If you needed, because things happen. And that is part of the journey I think we're all on. But it all starts with maintaining that relationship, following the expectations of the contract, calling when there is some difference. And it doesn't mean you got to change it for $3. I do mean something that's monumental and worthwhile where there's a budgetary shift where you got to talk about something, or in this case, a programmatic shift. And it's a reason you actually have a receptive ear more than you think.
You know, and I need you to dispel maybe some other myths or confirm some truth for me. People are saying that you know, giving is growing like gangbusters. You know, in some cases, folks are attributing it to, you know, the George Floyd environment. Are you guys feeling the growth? Are you seeing any real shifts in terms of what it takes to be impactful? You know, because really, right, my personal opinion is that the 20-somethings of every generation changed the world, right? You know, we were out there for Rodney King. Like, every generation has its blowhorn, right, so to speak, or its amplifier. What's changing out there? Are things still growing? Are companies expecting more accountability? Is there a different type of measurement? Are certain things prioritized differently now? What's going on out there?
I'm happy to chime in. The truth of what I'm saying, people are making verbal commitments, but the money is not yet keeping up with the announcement. That's and I'm being told that, the allocations will start to be this summer. And I do think in part it had a lot to do with the political climate we were living in, whether people wanted to fully acknowledge that or not. And then also think about it. If your company has not really been making these investments, they have to get a strategy together internally, right? And so I think there's been a lot. I know there has been a lot of trying to figure out what's going to be the strategy. When you make this announcement, and then it's like, okay, now because you need to make an announcement, right? But then you have to figure out what you're actually going to do. And I think there's going to be an increase in the allocations, and I do agree with, and I do feel like it'll be more around the summer time when we start to see, start to really see a lot of the investing, and also in a global health pandemic. So even from a perspective of, I think people are watching to see the effectiveness of the vaccine, because all of this, I believe, is going to have some impact in the way people make investment and the rate of investment. So that's what I am seeing that's happening a lot on my side. That's what I'm seeing a lot of.
Excellent. Adrienne, what are you seeing on your side in terms of major dynamic shifts? You know, public policy, you know, travel, folks, all of a sudden folks couldn't travel. You know, but on the flip side with you, right, you're also dealing, you know, you're a leadership coach. So, like, you know, what are those things that you're using to inspire folks to still want to make a difference?
Well, I tell them that it's very important, and I think you touched upon it. In fact, last night I was speaking to a group of my Jack and Jill ladies because I founded that chapter, and I was telling them, you all are Black philanthropists. And I gave them the same definition that you did. I said, you're giving your time, talent. The whole conversation was about how we're going to raise money to give back. The Magnolia League, that's what they do. We talk about the Divine Nine. How can we give back? And so that's what I'm finding, that we are collectively and individually making contributions that maybe we hadn't done before. So it's now that we are giving, and we're giving to good causes. And it's to, like, some of the causes he's talking about, or some of the parameters. And it's like making sure that we are following suit on what we need to do. You know, for my clients, I tell them it's okay to have multiple streams of income. It's okay to do that. And, you know, for a while, we as Black people thought you just have to have this job, just get a job and stay at the job. No, I don't think so. I think it's okay to have multiple streams of income and multiple avenues of revenue. And so you just following the rules and sometimes thinking outside of the box. And that's why I said, even now, I'm still doing consulting for Coca-Cola. My friends said, why are you still working? You're retired. I said, but I've got a lot to do, especially when I know when I walked in the door of Coca-Cola, and they 100 years ago, and they gave me something called stock. I was like, what is that? My daddy was an internal revenue agent. My mom was a, what is stock? And so, you know, I don't want people to walk in like that. I want people to know about credit. You know, what is your credit score? You know, I need them to know about even that business plans, write your business plan. So I've decided that I've got to give back. I just don't want to take all of this to the grave with me. I've got to keep giving back. And my Woe You Bra program, I think my goal this year, I'm going to train 200 women. And so I have my friends that are going with me, even though we're not physically going, to have my team there, Jennifer Moffett and Ellen Aldi, they're making that happen for us. So it's just all just staying focused and doing what you're, and being intentional and being strategic. That's crucial.
Being intentional and being strategic. Good words of wisdom. We've got a couple more questions that are coming in, but before we go, I do want to make sure that you all, you know, because Christal, one of the questions is, how can I get some more information about the Marxist Venue Event? So, you know, I don't know if there's a website or, you know, an email address or, you know, a secret password, smoke signals. I don't know, but we got some folks trying to figure out about the Marxist Venue Event.
Sure. I mean, you can email me, and I'll give my email address right now if it's appropriate. But or you know, go to the website www.mosaicgenius.com and fill out the contact form, and I'll reply to you. Whatever your questions are, we'll definitely reply to you.
All right, Steve.
You want contact information or
just
one thing I wanted.
Go ahead.
There's one thing I wanted to bring up, and Christal, you brought it up, and Adrian as well. I think when we talk about this new giving that's going on, Christal, I think you're right. There's a lag in terms of the money actually flowing as a result of the announcements. I actually want to come at it slightly differently, but also talk about what I think is the longer term issue. I think as much money is flowing, I wonder if the recipients are ready to receive and if the work is ready to be done. And so I really look at it from a capacity standpoint. So as much as these millions and billions are flowing, I really wonder if we, bottom up, are really ready to do what we're supposed to do with the money so that it is impactful and changes our communities. That is the piece that I think is also important. So as much as these announcements are coming and the foundations and others are finding their strategies, I also think we have an opportunity, us, brown and black folks, those in the trenches, to shore up our institutions. Maybe partner with other institutions, maybe find ways to get strength stronger to be ready for this flow of dollars as it starts to come. Because fear will be that if they flow this money and it fails, it won't flow again.
I think you are spot on. I remember, I'm not sure I should say it on this call, but there was a big announcement and there was money moved, but it was really hard to move because when they were looking for a place to put it, people did not have the capacity for it. And so what did they have to do? They had to collaborate. They had to figure out a way to bring all of these people they wanted to invest in together so that they would have the capacity. And one of the things I always bring up to investors, donors, whatever they want to call themselves in this moment, I say, see, here's another thing for you to learn is that these organizations don't have the infrastructure and the capacity. And so there needs to be much more technical assistance offered, right? So if you're taking my organization, if you're about to double my income, or I mean, I'm being speaking mildly, right? Like pretty low. But if people are about to like receive all of this money, that Steve, that is exactly right. So again, back to the point of being collaborative, you need to have other folks that you are in relationship with that do the work you do every day. This is my best advice right now is to find some friends if you don't already have them. And you all need to just create like a trusted network so that when the opportunities come, and I'll say this candidly, that's going to be the big problem, the capacity, right? So when these opportunities come, you can say, I may not have one thing, but Adrian has something else. And so we're going to work together and we're going to be successful. I'm so happy you brought that up, Steve, because I watched that play out in March over and over and over again. People were ready to make big gifts, but people didn't have the capacity or infrastructure to receive them. And I am extremely protective in the sense that I don't want you to be set up for failure. I want you set up for success. And so I'm always make certain that, even if I'll say to people, listen, what do we need to do behind the scenes to get you together so that you can, jump out? Because a lot of times we think we're ready to jump out. I've noticed is we think we're ready, but, and I'm like,
but Christal, I guess that's the thing that we really got to figure out a way to break down a little bit, right? Because even now, as I'm seeing some of the social media, in some cases, I think people think we're still talking a little bit too much over their head, like it's intimidating. People don't know how to get that right click or friend. They don't know how to communicate what they need.
Ask questions. It is okay not to know. And you have to ask the questions. Like, I don't know what that means. Can you please explain it to me? Can you break down what a DAF is? How much money do I need? Right? You can open a DAF in some places with $5,000. You can open a DAF some places with $25,000. Right? And DAF is a donor advised fund. And the reason I always shake my head and every time I meet someone, they're like, I have some money. I want to start a foundation. And I'm like, well, you need to start a donor advised fund. You don't need to start a foundation. Why? Do you know how much money you really, and I'm going to probably get booed for saying this, you probably at least, and this is small, $10 million that you don't even need to look at, touch, or anything if you're thinking about starting a foundation. Right? I mean, if it's under 10 million, you need a DAF. And it's okay, because even in that network where you create the DAF, you're going to meet other people like you. You're going to meet other peers. And guess what? You can be collaborative. So whereas, something you cared about, you could only write a check for $150,000. In this network, there may be 4 or 5 other people like you. And what happens when 4 people can write a check for $150,000? So I think this is the perfect example of just stay in your lane. I want to say myself, it's okay to play in your space, right? If you are a $5,000 philanthropist, you're a $5,000 philanthropist. You're 25, whatever the case is. Ultimately, it's about impact. It's about being strategic. And I think in this moment of COVID, we are going to have to be intentional, strategic, because the recovery process, and Steve knows this and Adrian knows this, if we were already struggling, our kids were already struggling, our education system or the places where our kids were in school were struggling. If I'm a graduate of development, And I started receiving phone calls about, can I get money together to get Spelman Sisters laptops? And I was horrified that people were at Spelman and didn't have a laptop they could take home. Like that, just the idea that in a world where technology and all this money, we were running around trying to have GoFundMe. I'm probably exaggerating, but the fact that we were running around trying to find money for laptops, that made me understand in that moment. I said, we are
So you
in
made
more.
me, so you just made me feel really bad there, because you're talking about a laptop. I think I still had one of those Brother electronic typewriters when I went there. So, folks, this has been a wonderful discussion. Really, just some amazing mind power. We appreciate your time and sharing with Christal Jackson, founder of Hidden Heart Philanthropy and Mosaic Genius. Thank you so much. Stephen J. Casey, Associate Director, Grants Management for the MacArthur Foundation. Thank you. And Dr. Adrian Johnson, CEO of Infinity Global Connections. Folks, a wealth of information. As we kind of look at our calendar here at MOBE, we feel like sometimes we probably need to rotate these subjects a little bit more so that they can get the advanced courses sometimes as well. But again, we really do appreciate your participation and your knowledge sharing this evening. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Ms. Moya. Can't hear you.
All right, everybody. Okay, so thank you so much for being here. What a great discussion and what we've learned today. I just want to do a few little bullet points. Blacks do give back. Blacks do give back. Please, let's dispel of this conversation about what we don't do. This is about what we do. This is what, speaking to your comment, Ken, MOBE is an advanced marketing conversation. And it is about marketing. How are you going to position yourself to get anything? It's all about marketing. From the moment you walk in the door, somebody's looking at my hair saying, what's she trying to say? But really, it's really about all boats rise, about we can do this together. Some of my favorite hashtags: collaboration works, legacy matters. Look at this Coca-Cola thing. Back in the day, MOBE is almost 30 years old. We did a business assessment trip to West Africa and South Africa. And guess where some of our sponsorship money came in from? Carl Ware at Coca-Cola Company, because we were already doing business with him. I was doing business with him when I was selling advertising. So when we talk about relationships matter, they absolutely matter. They will stand the test of time if you maintain your integrity and you demonstrate that you are worthy, and you will be a good steward of whatever is coming your way, be it a in-kind, a nod, a handshake, or whatever kind of gift, to dollars that you don't know how to manage. And what I recommend is that we get some executives on loan from some of the major accounting firms, and have them be fiscally responsible for the integrity of the organization on the financial side. Because those of us who are grassroots, we need to keep doing our work. We really need to keep doing our work. And with the grant should come those kinds of dollars, those kinds of people, and that kind of talent. And let us tell what we need, how we need to have that delivered as well. The other hashtag, legacy matters. Let's work together for a change. That is one of the organizations locally that we work with, the South Shore Works. That is our mission, is working together for a change. That is the hashtag we use. Thank you so much for being here. I have really enjoyed it and appreciated it. I think that Rael is going to give us an idea of what's coming up next week. And I'm just going to say thank you so much, Adrienne. It's wonderful. You took me back in the day to that MOBE assessment trip. And many of us still did business in Africa too. So I can tell that story at another time. Steve Casey, we've known each other for a while, never really had a chance to talk the way we need to. But you've seen us in the dirt, literally, in the garden, doing things, teaching kids how to eat healthy, etc., pulling weeds and everything. So thank you for knowing that we can get in the weeds and we can do a program like this with few Chicagoans know about. And thank you so much, Christal, for your ingenuity. Knowing, what's really important is that we can fill in the gap when we know what's missing, and we take it upon ourselves to fill it in rather than have a discussion. So this is about not talk, but do. Everybody on this panel has done some amazing things, including our moderator tonight, Mr. Ken Rye, who had a mission to find out some things about the world and how it works. So we truly appreciate that. Rael, can you give us an idea what's going to happen for next Monday for our MOBE Monday segment?
So, welcome. Thank you for that. The next MOBE Monday will take place February 1st, the beginning of Black History Month. It will be the State of Black America, moderated by Pepper Miller of the Hunter Miller Group. And we have a special guest, Tyel Hayes, who just recently became the Senior Vice President of Brand Strategy and Marketing for BET. So tune in February 1st to MOBE Mondays, and we look forward to bringing you a powerful panel. And thank you, everyone, for being here, and good night.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody. Enjoyed your
Enjoy the rest
conversations.
of your day.